Hello, genealogists. It's Craig. And it's Book Sunday. You know, the time when I tell you about what's new out there in regards to books, especially those from Heritage Books. Well, I've had this book now for over 6 weeks, maybe a month. I'm not really sure. I can't keep track of such things. But I haven't had one in stock to be able to talk to you about it because every time we would get stock in, they would go out the door and we'd have more stock coming in and they would go out the door. And finally, I have sufficient stock in stock to be able to talk to you about this fantastic book that is The Associated Daughters of the Early American Witches, Roll of Ancestors, second edition by Kimberly Ormsby Nagy. Dr. Nagy was the past Register General from 2006 to 2010 and Honorary President General from 2014 to 2016 of the Associated Daughters of Early American Witches. Now, what qualifies as an early American witch? It's a witch who's identified as a witch in the records prior to 1700. And this book provides biographical data on all the witches that anybody knows anything about, with lots of illustrations and that kind of stuff. That for these people, I forget how many witches there are, but there's I don't know. There's a lot of witches in here. But I think what I like about it is there's also a section after the biographical data that shows how witches relate to each other. So there are family connections that are included in chart form. Now, normally I wouldn't be happy about a book that was full of family group sheets or charts, but this kind of chart letting you see the close relationship between some of these people works very well. There's also a list of witches, and there are very few on this list, who were witches after 1 January 1700. And these are witches, if you descend from them, you don't qualify for membership in the organization. And there's just a few pages of those. Then there is a list known as Appendix C of non-existent ancestors, and these appear in various listings of accused witches, but their names may have been misspelled or something else, and really we don't know much about these people. There also is a list of suggested reading, and you may or not be aware that Heritage Books has actually lots of books on witchcraft, and I'm seriously contemplating just doing a thing on witchcraft at some point, but I didn't want to do that today because I did not want to detract from this book. So one of my favorite witches is, let me find her in the book. The book's alphabetical by witch. And by the way, these witches are both male and female. But my favorite witch is Margaret Stevenson Scott. And she's born in England about 1621. And she dies 22 September 1692 in Salem, Massachusetts. How many times do I have to put my glasses on? And she married widower Benjamin Scott. Now you see why I'm interested. It's not that I'm connected to this Benjamin Scott. It's just that his last name is Scott, and I am interested in all Scots and have been all my life. Anyway, she married Benjamin Scott on 28 May 1642, and he died in 1671 in Rowley, Maine. And they had children, Joseph, Benjamin, John, and Elizabeth. Now, Benjamin, the son, married Susanna Scales, and John, the son, married Hannah Duncan. So that's the level of detail that appears, along with, by the way, there are more children. I forgot to flip the page. Mary, who married John Decker, and Samuel and Sarah. And her accusation was, regardless of what it was, she was hanged at Gallows Hill at Salem, Mass. On 22 September 1692, and included in Each listing are references, so you'll find information about this in Early Settlers of Rowley, a genealogical record of the families who settled in Rowley before 1700 with several generations of their descendants. You'll find it in the Witchcraft Hysteria of 1692. You'll also find it in Salem Witchcraft and Hawthorne's House of Seven Gables. Some company called Heritage Books published that one. And of course, you'll also find it, as you will many of these, in Savage's Genealogical Dictionary, The First Settlers of New England. Definitely a book that if you're into New England ancestry, you would want to have. There's also many illustrations in the book. This is a memorial to her. It's her memorial stone in Rowley. And then there's also a picture of her house. So I'm just glad that finally I'm able to hold this book in my hand, because I've waited for such a long time to even see what it looked like and how it would work. And I especially love, you'll have to pardon me, but I'm very biased from the perspective of wandering through here and seeing the references about how many of them actually list us as the publisher. So that's The Associated Daughters of Early American Witches, Roll of Ancestors, 2nd edition. We've probably sold 75 or 100 of them already since it's come in, and I'm just trying to make it available, knowledge that it exists available to everybody else. So what am I going to talk to you about today? Well, we at Heritage Books have this interest in doing runs of newspapers, and we've done several of them, but probably the most important from a national perspective and largest in that it covers 70 years is the National Intelligencer. Now, originally it started out as a National Intelligencer and Washington Advertiser, and it was published in Washington, D.C., beginning on the 30th of October, 1800, and it lasted until 1870. It shut down in 69, and then it came back up in 70 for a short period of time, less than a year. And it was the first published newspaper in the District of Columbia. And remember that the District of Columbia was just founded 10 years before. It started out as a tri-weekly, and then it went to a daily. And it's reported that this paper had a strong bias to Republicans and to Thomas Jefferson. So the owner was a guy by the name of Samuel Harrison Smith, and the publisher was William Winston Seton and Joseph Gales. And Joseph Gales, if I remember correctly, was also the printer of the Congress. Smith was the early proprietor. Gales takes over as sole proprietor in 1810, and he and Seton continue to publish it for 50 years. Gales was the Senate's sole reporter, and Seton reported on the House of Representatives. So these people had a unique perspective to bring to the National Intelligencer. So what was going on in the Congress is being reported. So that means you'll get things like military appointments, you'll get information about marriages, deaths, property transactions in the District of Columbia. And it's hard to describe the varying levels of things that are available in the National Intelligencer. If I just open up the 1851 version to a page, I get, to put my glasses on again, for example, Wednesday, 23 July, 1851. Mr. Jonathan Olcott, the oldest inhabitant of Hartford, Connecticut, died in that city on July 16th at the age of 93. Must have been a cousin of mine. He had employed unusual health for one of his age, and on the day before his death, he was able to walk about the house. On July 4th, he rode in the procession with the soldiers of the Revolution. Then we see in the same day that the Postmaster General has established the following new post offices for the week ending July 19th, 1851. And it gives us the name of the office, the name of the county and state, and the name of the postmaster. And then there's a list of some name changes. Collins, Erie County, North Carolina, changed to Shirley. Blythe, Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, changed to Tuscarora. Good Springs, Meade County, Kentucky, changed to Meadville. Bear Creek, Jay County, Indiana, changed to West Liberty. And then there's a list of post offices in California. And the death of a White Mountain patriarch on Tuesday, Abel Crawford departed this life. He died after a lingering and painful illness at the advanced age of 86 years. He was one of the earliest settlers in those wild and secluded regions, having resided for about 60 years on the spot where the Mount Crawford House now stands, about 6 miles below Notch Valley. And that was pulled out of the Boston Journal. And the day goes on for another 2 pages, and I'll spare you. But it pulls information in from New Orleans. It pulls information in from the Baltimore and Susquehanna Railroad. Mr. Meredith, the conductor of the freight train on the Baltimore and Susquehanna Railroad, who was dreadfully injured by accident near Parkston on Tuesday, died at York that evening. So recognize that it's not just D.C., but it's all over the country. Probably more east part of the country than west, but all over the country. Because everything from all over the country would come to Washington. Did you hear that R? I was born in the District of Columbia, and people tell me how to pronounce the town I was born in. Anyway, people go, Washington is the state. Washington is the city. But anyway, that's just me. So what I want to do today, because I don't do this normally very often. So if you want to buy an individual volume of the National Intelligencer, the one I just read from was 1851, then if you use NI20, you'll get a 20% discount. Now, if you should consider to purchase the entire set that goes from 1810 to 1870, I will give you a 40% discount. I don't usually give out 40% discounts, but I think this is a very valuable resource. I know several people who have it and enjoy it, and if you want your library to have it and you think their library should have it and they're willing to purchase it, then you should tell them about NI 40, because I will also sell it to libraries, because that's really where it belongs. But if you want to have your own personal set, NI 40 will work for the entire set, and NI 20 will work for any individual volumes that you might want to have. So this has been Book Sunday, and this is Craig, and I'm looking forward till tomorrow. I still haven't decided what I'm even going to talk about tomorrow. So don't forget, we have a live stream coming up on Wednesday the 13th at 5 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, or whatever it is, Standard Time, Eastern Time. So live stream. If you haven't looked at it yet, don't forget to look at the Genealogical Proof Standard first session. If you have any questions, we want to make sure that those get answered. And that was yesterday's, Real World today, YouTube World yesterday's shtick. And so if you have any questions, make sure that we get those in there. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a question and answer kind of thing going on that relates to it alone sometime near the end of the week. And then we'll start with next Saturday with the reasonably exhaustive search and that discussion. And I think that's about it for the day. So y'all be safe. And this is goodbye.